hatchet, life staff, great axe, musket. Long ago, the 4 beta weapons lived together in harmony, but everything changed when the meta builders attacked. Only the Redloff, master of all weapons, could stop them, but when the world needed him most, he vanished. To create this great guide on creative weapon combos. What's up everyone? For this week's New World Wednesday, I wanted to show 3 creative builds that showcase weapon combos you don't see a lot and how you can make it work. While I've seen a lot of number crunching videos and this or that, I wanted to offer a fusion of those types of builds with less meta restrictions to showcase things that can be creative. These builds will feature fun aesthetics, like if you want to be a fiery god or a Spartan warrior, but hopefully I can bring some ideas and pros and cons that back it up on a realistic standpoint. Lastly, some of these builds may not be the most optimized, and maybe you can help me down below in the comments on how to optimize it better. Like that little plug there. A lot of these will be hybrid builds, meaning late game you'll need to optimize gear and gems to really make them work. I do want to note that while we're talking about gems and way to balance this and optimize these builds, I do want to make an emphasis that these are more focused on aesthetics and playstyle and that kind of line, due to the fact that the game hasn't even launched yet and there could be major balances that make these builds awful or god tier, and that should be accounted for in the fact that we're trying to focus more on playstyle, and if we can get some numbers to back it up in the long run, that's great, and if not, no worries. So, without further ado, let's go through these 3 super creative builds that I made to fill that unique gameplay style we also desire. First things first, hatchet great axe. I'm just kidding. First things first, the Vulcan build. Become the Roman god of fire, symbolized with the double axe. With this, as I'm sure you can guess, great axe fire staff build. Here's a quick overview of the build. For the great axe, you'll be running the charge ability, execute, and gravity well. And for the fire staff, you'll be running incinerate, burnout, and fireball. So, a little bit about these abilities, and some things you can alter. The idea of this build is this can be a frontline fighter with heavy DPS. With the great axe and the fire staff, you'll have a lot of AoE damage, and you can kind of alter a bit of these abilities if you so wish. The biggest one that you could swap out is if you don't want to run Incinerate, you could swap that out with Meteor Shower, and I can explain how that would adjust the build at the end of this build overview. But overall, you're going to lean heavy into that idea of becoming this fiery god on the front line. You'll be rocking medium to heavy armor, and you're going to be a monster in DPS for melee. So a few ideas behind this. First, in terms of these abilities and how gameplay goes out, you'll be charging in with either your burnout or charge ability, be running incinerate to kind of start off the DPS, maybe throw a fireball down, swapping over the great axe. The great combo with this actually pertains to throwing out your gravity well before your fire staff abilities. If you can charge in, get that gravity well down, swing a couple times, and swap over the fire staff, you can have enemies kind of clumped in together for these AoE fire abilities. That's where like the Meteor Shower could be swapped in if you want a gravity well and then swap over to the Meteor Shower. However, if you run that style build, you're going to have to alter it a bit to be more ranged than anything. Beyond this, in terms of gems, if you want to leave heavy into the fire build, you could run a pristine cut ruby, or if you want to lean heavier in the great axe, you could rock that pristine opal gem. Pros, this is a high mobility build in terms of the charge and burnout ability, so you should be able to get in and out quickly. You have high damage with AoE focus, and this is good for PvP open world and 50v50 due to the AoE damage and clumps for the 50v50 and the mobility with the charge and burnout to help you get in and out of battles quickly. The cons. There is less survivability compared to running hatchet or life staff with this build. That being said, with the medium or heavy armor, this could act as a makeup unless you just want to be Mr. Speed with light armor. Both these weapons have longer animation casting, so just be wary of that. It's not the quickest build. And the attributes don't line up the best, so you'll have to get gems at higher levels or find ways to balance this. But with some cosmetics and some cool little voiceover lines you want to drop with proximity chat, you can be the Vulcan Fire God. Personally, I would love to be a fire demon on the front line, and this is going to be the build I am probably going to try out in the open beta, and if not, in the full launch. The second build is the Hoplite Build. Masters of the front line, running this combo of sword, shield, and spear puts you fighting off all enemies like the Spartans themselves, no matter your number disadvantage. Like I mentioned, you'll be rocking the sword, shield, and spear for this combo. For the sword, the abilities you're rocking will be Shield Rush, Shield Bash, and Leaping Strike. For the spear, you'll be rocking Javelin, Sweep, and Vault Kick. The idea behind this build is to create a tank frontliner with heavy single target CC, making you a master at dueling, and in the hopes of ranked arenas and 2v2s and that kind of stuff, a great support and able to kind of pin down a single opponent and just annihilate them. Additionally with this, with the tankiness that sword and shield gives you, as well as the lifesteal attributes that spear can provide, you can really just out-sustain a lot of damage and just sit in the front and hold any line like the Spartans at the Battle of Thermopylae. So with that idea, you can rock some weapons like maybe the Edge of Rebellion or the Opus Blade to help you with no CD, or some chain damage to help with AoE, as this will be a light on AoE. Get some life staff on that spear, maybe run the Malachite gem to help with your CC so you get your abilities up faster with cooldown, or you can run the Pristine Cut Opal because you're going to be losing a lot of stamina, so get those gems in to help with stamina. But like we mentioned before, the pros: tanky, incredible, if not the best single target CC build for duels or even in the wars, and both weapons scale with strength or dex, which obviously one skill is higher with strength than the other with dex, but it helps it easier in terms of finding a balance between these two or focusing on one. The cons of this build: little AoE damage. You're not going to be like the Vulcan build or the next build dishing out major AoE damage. This is much more focused and targeted, and you're not going to have the necessary highest DPS in this type of build, but you will be dishing out a good amount of damage just based on how long you should be able to survive on this build. However, become a Spartan god, fight off your enemies, and run the Hoplite build if it so suits you. Last, but certainly not least, the Niflheim Build. Death Incarnate, you are a master of ice and poison, letting the mists you breathe out annihilate your enemies. A plague upon the enemy army, that is the build of Ice Gauntlet and Bow. So, obviously we'll be rocking those two weapons. It's going to be heavy on the AoE damage and annihilating the enemy army with high DPS. For the Ice Gauntlet, you'll be rocking Ice Shower, Ice Storm, and Entombed. And for the Bow, you'll be rocking Evade Shot, Poison Shot, and Penetrating Shot. The idea behind this build is you're going to run a lot of kind of soft CC together, a lot of debuffs, and a lot of damage. You're going to have great AoE DPS with Ice Shower and Ice Storm, as well as the Poison Shot from the Bow. And if you need to, the Penetrating Shot from the Bow kind of helps you in the single target damage. So, let's kind of break down the idea behind this and why this ranged DPS build will make you feel like a death god itself. The weapons, you want to go stat heavy, either go hard with Glass Cannon or get some con, but you're going to be focusing a lot on crit items when you can. This is going to be a high DPS, you want that crit, you want to layer it with your soft debuffs that really just get a lot of damage out. For gems, if you rock the Pristine Diamond, that could be good. It requires you to really be safe in terms of your positioning, or if you go Aquamarine, you can lean heavier in the Ice Gauntlets and use the Bow Poison more as a support. So, pros and cons. Pros, this is some of the best AoE range out there, and especially the best AoE damage out there. Kind of contenders are obviously like the Fire Staff and stuff, but this is one of the better ones you can rock. This is great light CC, the Ice Gauntlets will act as a slow, and the Poison will act as a debuff. It's really strong, and a really strong crit build. Get some crit chances on your off items if you can, but at least get the high DPS for your Ice Gauntlets and crit chance buff with them. The cons is that this is going to be incredibly weak in melee. You don't really have anything melee-wise. If a Hatchet Great Axe spammer hops on you, it's going to be hard to get out. That's why we rock the Entombment ability, just to help buy you some time in the wars and whatnot, but it will be a bit rougher if you get caught in melee. It's also not the best single target build. We have the Penetrating Shot to kind of help with that when you need, but you're not going to be doing a lot of single target DPS. And because of how this works and how you want to rock high DPS with abilities that are based off of dexterity and intelligence, you're not going to have really any room for constitution. What we talked before, the Vulcan build wasn't really a con heavy build. You could rock it, still get some con in there just based on how that build works. However, for this build to really maximize your DPS as a range, you're going to go all in on dexterity and intelligence. You have no room to get constitution, so you will be incredibly squishy. But it is possible, and you could absolutely just decimate armies with your abilities come big wars. So there you have it, everyone. Those are the 3 creative builds that I came up with to kind of help fit these unique aesthetics and different playstyles compared to what is the current meta, and obviously meta can change come launch. However, I like the idea of becoming a fiery god, a Spartan warrior, or becoming death incarnate itself. I think these are all cool ways to do it, and with cosmetics and how you layer your abilities and finding gems and ways to optimize these builds, I think these are really cool builds that I just haven't seen a lot in terms of these weapon combos, and I wanted to share to kind of help illuminate on the idea of building outside just pure layered abilities and rocking these hybrid builds where you can. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I'm really curious on what you guys are thinking about these builds and if they're going to be strong or not, and if you think this is a waste of time. And if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, and maybe we can do some more creative builds in the future. Until next time, peace out.